All right, we should be all set with everything being recorded. Thank you. I know that's Susan behind the Focus Springfield logo, so we appreciate you. So we'll bring the meeting to order. I'm Chairman Jesse Letterman. This is the regular COVID-19 Response Committee meeting. We are joined by Councilor Melvin Edwards, as well as the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Commissioner Helen Colton-Harris, Deputy Finance Officer Lindsay Hackett, and Budget Director Melanie Jacoby. I also see Peter Goonan and Paul Tuthill in the audience. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And we have one agenda item, which is our regular update on COVID-19 response and recovery. What I'd like to do today is hear from the commissioner and take any questions for her, and then move to the finance office for an update on American Rescue Plan Act spending. So Commissioner, good to see you. Appreciated seeing you over the weekend at the basketball tournament. And we'll give you the floor to let us know the latest from the administration in terms of the pandemic and our response.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor Letterman and Councilor Edwards. So the news isn't good, and it continues not to be good as far as our cases are concerned in the city of Springfield. As you know, last week we had 64 cases, up from 37 cases the week prior, and 23 cases the week prior to that. The week of June 20th, there were 17 cases. And so what we're seeing is that our cases continue to rise in the city. The days of the week probably aren't necessary. These charts, as you know, are up on the city's website, so please feel free to take a look at them. But we had 64 cases last week. 55% of those cases were 30 and under, 31% were 31 to 50, and then 51 and older is 14%. So those are the big bucket items for our data. Again, our numbers are rising. As far as vaccinations are concerned, 47.5 of the city's residents have a first dose. 67.3 is the average in the state. The percentage fully vaccinated for the city is 41.1%. And for the state, it's 60.4%. So we continue to run 19 to 20% below the rest of the Commonwealth. The 0 to 64-year-old population is 42%, and the statewide average is 62.4%. 65 to 74 years is 87% as compared to the state, which is 92.4%. 75 and older is 81.2% as compared to the state, which is 90.7%. The 0 to 64-year-olds, I just actually gave you that data, so I will move on from there and talk a little bit about race and ethnicity. So the three areas, the Asian community fully vaccinated is 46.2%, and in the state average is 60.6%. The Black vaccination rate percentage is 30.7% as compared to the state, which is 43%. The Hispanic population, 25.8% as compared to the state, which is 41.4%. And then the white population rate, just 1 second. White population rate is 53.7% as compared to the state, which is 58.6% of the population. The disturbing news for me today was yesterday, our cases were 38. I have not seen 38 cases in quite some time, but 38 cases came in yesterday. 12 of them were under the age of 20. 19 were under the age of 30. 12 were 30 to 50. So 31 of those 38 cases from yesterday were under the age of 50. And what we're seeing is that 19 of them were under the age of 30 and 12 were under the age of 20. So what we're looking at is a virus that is now impacting the younger population, which is why you don't see the hospitalization rates going up the same way that they did previously when we were looking at an older population who became hospitalized. These are younger ages, and it is definitely very, very concerning. I'm looking at the cases for today right now. I haven't had a chance to digest them in terms of the numbers, but 19 cases today. So if you add that 38 and 19, we are almost at the point of where we were as far as last month, the whole month is concerned, just in 2 days. The schedule for the upcoming week, our vaccination clinic, we were at Inglesa yesterday on Berkshire Avenue where we vaccinated. We are tonight at the Raymond Jordan Center, as you know. Thursday, every Thursday, we're at Brightwood. Monday, we'll be at the South End Community Center. And then Wednesday at Partners for Community Action. We are partnering with the Big Y. The Big Y, we will be doing vaccinations with them July 23rd, 24th, and the 30th and 31st. That will be at the St. James Avenue store, because we believe that area, we really haven't held a comprehensive vaccination clinic there. We will be vaccinating at Stone Soul. We'll be vaccinating at Harambe. And then July 31st, we'll do a vaccination celebration, is what we're calling it, at Magazine Park. That celebration, we're hopeful that, again, we target our younger population. There will be food trucks there. There will be music. We just want to really just engage people around, young folks, particularly around education, and making sure that we're at least meeting individuals where they are. So that's my report for this week.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you know, I'm certainly concerned with the rising numbers we're seeing. Do we know the vaccination status of the individuals that we're seeing come up positive? Does that get reported?
It does not get reported, but I do call the epidemiologists at the state to try and glean some more data. And what we're really seeing is the majority are unvaccinated. So we already know the 0 to 10-year-olds can't be vaccinated. So those positives kind of flow into our numbers. But for the most part, it is the unvaccinated younger population that is contributing to this rise in our numbers. And you can see that by the data that I just reported to you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I looked at the, I pulled the data too off of the state website prior to our meeting. And I mean, if you look at the state, right on the page that reports all the data, they break it down even further. I mean, they're showing 75% of folks 75 plus in the city being vaccinated, 80% of folks 65 to 74, 72% of folks 50 to 64. Where it starts to drop off is in the, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Hurst is looking to be admitted. There we go. Where it looks to drop off is, you know, in the 30 to 49, it goes 50%. In the 20 to 29, it goes 29%, 16 to 19, 28%, and 12 to 15, 23%. So, you know, that I think accounts for some of the reasoning as to why we're seeing those increases.
But your oxygen, your anaerobic non-oxygen metabolism.
We broke it down more by zip codes, and there are zip codes in the city where the vaccination rate is 22, 23%. So even when we talk about those average numbers for the city, the numbers that you quoted, as well as the ones that I have in front of me, we absolutely know that it is the younger population, and certain neighborhoods do have lower vaccination rates than others. And so what we've tried to do is target those neighborhoods. And we're still meeting every Thursday with BHN, Tapestry. We meet at the department to talk about our outreach strategy. I mean, individuals in the city are working hard to try to turn these numbers around, but they're stubborn at this point. And again, we're seeing them really rise right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Have we heard any, what are we hearing from the teams that have been going out door to door? I know you've also been meeting with them weekly.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing their work. They're knocking on doors. They're providing education. They're letting individuals know where our vaccination clinics are, where they can walk in. So everyone, again, is attempting to do the work down at. So the north end, we're still at Brightwood. New North Citizens Council has the ability to vaccinate now. I'm not sure if they have, but trying to really drill down into the north end of the city and the rest of the city. So there are, they are from door to door saying that people are receptive, they're listening, but it's not showing in the data at this point because I'm not seeing our vaccination rates, are rising, but they're rising so incredibly slowly.
Certainly. Well, we're certainly very appreciative of those teams and the work that they're doing. Councilor Edwards or Councilor Hurst, who's now joined us as well, did either of you have any questions for the commissioner?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Helen, for everything you're doing. Would it be appropriate to ask what particularly the 22% in certain neighborhood number is? I mean, what neighborhood by zip code that would be?
Yep, what I'm going to do, because I don't have the data right in front of me on that right now, what I will do is send it to you, Councilor Edwards, make sure that you have it so you can take a look at it. But it is, I can tell you the zip codes are the same zip codes we struggle with, which was 07, 05, 03, and 08, and 09. Those are the primary areas where we're seeing that the vaccination rates appear to be lower than the rest of the city.
Unfortunately,
I will send you the data so you have the paper in front of you.
Unfortunately, I live in one of those zip codes, and I'm not really surprised. I'm just saddened by it, though. But I do appreciate how hard you and your staff have been working to try to address this problem, but it just doesn't seem like it's an easy solution. So thank you. I appreciate that.
It's very disheartening when you do try to do, and you see an entire community trying to pull together to get our vaccination rates up. And when that number came out, 38, and then today 19, it was just, it was heart-wrenching. It took me to back a year ago almost when we were seeing these kinds of numbers. So I'm hopeful that we will continue to try and turn this around and get those numbers back down.
And I can remember the frustration when we started this, when they opened up the Eastfield Mall with Curative, and the numbers that were coming out of the majority of the people who were getting vaccinated were coming out of Ludlow. Mm-hmm. And here we are almost a year later. And City of Springfield is just, we can't blame the access to resources. It's just, but the numbers are appalling. And the tragic thing is it's not a paper cut anymore. The people are still putting their lives at risk with this. I'm done, but thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Councilor Hurst.
Mr. Chair, are these questions just related to the data, as I probably missed some of that, or are they just general questions?
Just general questions for the commissioner, Councilor Hurst.
So Commissioner, mass update. Can you give me a mass update in terms of what it is the plan is for either the state and or the city of Springfield?
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. That's an excellent question. So you didn't hear the data, but what I said was that we had in the city 38 cases yesterday, and we had 19 cases today. And I said that 12 of those of the 38 were under the age of 20, and then the 19 were under the age of 30, and 12 were between 30 and 50. So I said all that as we start to talk about face coverings and masks. It should be all of us when we are in settings where there are individuals that we don't know or who are not a part of our immediate circle. I would recommend highly that we use face coverings. Or masks. I doubt that the state is going to change their recommendation right now, but you also saw with the state last week, those 3 days, 717 cases, which is a lot more than we've been seeing from the Commonwealth even. So I would recommend putting on a mask when you are in a environment where you don't particularly know the individuals or they're not a part of your circle. The, the 4th of July celebration, I don't know, that was 2 weeks ago. So usually when we have a large event, we get 2 weeks later, we start to see the cases go up, and that could be what we're experiencing. We'll just have to keep our eye on it, but it is that younger population that is driving the city of Springfield's numbers right now.
So I guess my frustration with that, Commissioner, is I think oftentimes throughout this pandemic, we've sort of been waiting for state guidance before the city of Springfield has moved. Our numbers are drastically different than the rest of the state. And so I guess, I certainly trust your judgment as you've guided us through this pandemic. But I guess my fear is that, we wait until it's too late to act here in Springfield, as opposed to requiring something like masks now. And, maybe it's just requiring them indoors when everybody's indoors. Maybe it's requiring them, gatherings over 100 outdoors. I don't know what the solution is, but when I walk into Home Depot, I don't see even 6 out of 10 people wearing masks. And so here in Springfield, where we at 40%, I definitely don't see, I'm sorry, I get my numbers mixed up. I don't see a lot of folks wearing masks that are representative of the numbers that we have vaccinated. And so, at some point in time, it just seems to me that we might need to lead as a city and just say, we're going to do our own thing.
You are absolutely correct. And that has been my concern with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts since this began. They've treated the entire Commonwealth as if it was all the same. They have not allowed us to, make different policy based on the city. And then it's difficult to make policy for the city because you're going to get a lot of complaints from folks who are going to say, the state DPH did not tell us to do this. Why are you putting these measures in place? We know the answer is the data, but this has been my concern from the very beginning. And I have been very vocal about the fact that I think Springfield is unique and we should be able to create our own policy. So your point is very well taken. So the question becomes, what do we do? Can we as a city create our own policy around mask wearing and COVID-19 strategies? And that's a question that needs answering, right? But I do not disagree with you, Councilor Hurst. I've always felt that we should have had the ability to make our own policy as it relates to the city of Springfield. It will be difficult because, again, people flow in and out of our city, and it's a policy that might be difficult to enforce as well.
Appreciate you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the only last comment I will say is that I think it's imperative that we start to think of what it is that we're going to do and how it is that we're going to enforce it. Because I don't envision a scenario in which our numbers are going to start going down, especially with the Delta variant. So, I don't know how we do it, but I think we have to start thinking about it now before it's too late. Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, thank you, Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Seeing no further questions for the Commissioner, that will, unless you have further recommendations for the committee, we will conclude that portion of the meeting.
So I think to Councilor Hurst's point, maybe the city council and our community partners, maybe it's important that we gather just to talk about strategy with those partners who are like BHN, Tapestry, who are getting paid, who get money from the state. Also, the Black COVID Coalition. There's also the Bishop Swan. So people are getting resources to be able to help with mitigate this challenge. And somehow we have to figure out how to have the conversation and develop a joint strategy. So thank you.
Certainly, and we've certainly had those groups represented in this setting as well. I know you meet regularly with those groups, but to the degree that we are interested in having further conversations or testimony or gathering together, we can certainly do that in the setting of this committee or in the setting of the DPH as well. Certainly, just depending on how many counselors we want. Sometimes we get too many counselors in the room. We do need to call it as a committee meeting. But I certainly agree and appreciate all the work that everybody is doing to see us recover from this. So appreciate your time, Commissioner, and all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner, as always, you're welcome to join us, but we recognize, of course, that you have many responsibilities. So
Thank you.
moving to the second portion of our meeting, we have Lindsay Hackett and Melanie Kobe. Thank you both for joining us. I just wanted to check in. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we accepted and authorized expenditure of the rescue plan funding. And so wanted to just check in and see where we were at, if any expenditures had been made or kind of what action was currently taking place around those funds.
Sure. Thank you, Counselor. So I will say that, oh, I just got out of it here. We did receive half of the funding. So we do have half of it in our bank account as it stands, over $40 million. As of right now, there's been no expenditures against the funding. We are putting together a plan. We have, as you know, nonprofits are eligible for some of the ARPA funding. So we're working with Tim Sheehan's team to try to put together some kind of process around how we are going to potentially take in applications, reach out to applicants, decide how and who should get that funding. So that's something we're currently working on. They've done it already with the programs like Prime the Pump. So we're trying not to reinvent the wheel. So we're working on that. As you know, you've already authorized the $12.1 million, which will go towards offsetting costs in the FY22 budget. So there's that. And then there is, we've also started to develop a process for the premium pay for the essential workers in the city. HR has started to put together guidelines for departments for that. But again, nothing's gone out yet.
What about small business aid and another round of Prime the Pump or something more expansive? What's the status on that?
So the ARPA money is definitely flexible. And I do think that some of those eligible expenses are covered in ARPA, but I haven't talked to Tim Sheehan about potentially expanding that program or developing something similar at this point.
So what do we have available now for small business aid for recovery?
Do you have any of the grants specific to that handy?
I'm just looking. So that grant is under the CDBG award that was provided to Tim Sheehan. So part of it was used for the pump grant that was for small businesses as well as nonprofits. I don't have of that grant what portion they budgeted for that purpose. So I can certainly get that for you to get you what the available balance would be off of that. Because it just basically in Unison, our accounting system, all I can see is the total amount of that grant, but there's just different elements on there.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
we would have to get some of that from Tim.
Sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that we would have to get some of that information from Tim for you.
Yeah, I think the question is just, because right now I don't know that there's anything currently available beyond what we've done previously. And so I know when we were speaking about the ARPA funds, one of the things that, we all agree there needs to be a long-term strategy around investing portions of it. But I think also we all agreed there were sort of obvious immediate needs. And I think one of those was small business aid and relief. Right. And so I'm just wondering, when we can expect to see those types of programs be made available. So I'm hopeful maybe we can continue to talk offline about that and do a further update at our next meeting.
I think that will go hand in hand with the process that we're developing for nonprofits. The reason that I say nonprofits is because that has been on the forefront of our minds because that's where we're getting immediate asks from. So I don't see why we can't develop a process for both at the same time.
I think that makes sense. I know that and there definitely was challenges, I know, for many of the nonprofits that are vital to our economy locally who weren't eligible under some of the funds that were made available previously. So it's great to hear that that's moving quickly. I'm thinking especially of some of the nonprofits that provide, really essential activities and things like that for
That's
our
exactly
people.
what it is. Yeah.
So that's key. But then also, I think, there's still unmet need. We know there's continued need around small business relief and support. So, and I also think, I know there's some federal programming around that, but I think that can be challenging to access. And I think we've talked a lot about trying to make it a little easier at the local level. I know that came up during Prime the Pump as well. So I think taking what we learned and being able to apply it here is going to be really important. So if you can inquire about that and keep that in mind as we go forward, that was sort of one of the things I wanted to cover today.
Definitely. And, I mean, as soon as last week we started to get, well, the requests have been coming in, but as soon as last week, I had reached out to Tim and I'm like, listen, I know you already have a sort of a process put together. Can we just kind of see what you did? And we need a process around it because we can't just, do one-off emails from here, there, wherever. And we need to get the word out, and we want it to be a fair and equitable process. So
I think to the degree, that a standard process can be established is very important, just because there are many people who may not recognize, that they have the opportunity to reach out. They may not have those contacts or those, just the understanding of that. So it needs to be equitable for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Any other questions for Melanie and Lindsay on American Rescue Plan funding?
Yes.
Quick question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilor.
Counselor Edwards and then Counselor Hurst.
Okay, thank you, Justin, and thank you, Mr. Councilor Letterman. But Lindsay or Melanie, I'm interested in small new development. The conversation seems to be always generated about Prime the Pump or supporting business that might have been impacted, but there are the opportunities now for new opportunities for businesses to come out of the ashes and start up downtown Main Street, other parts of the city. Is there a plan to be able to access some of this money for new development of small businesses around the city?
Thank you, Councilor. That's a great question. And I know it's something that Tim Sheehan is working on. I don't have a specific answer for you right now as to plans around that. But as far as economic development and growth in that area, I know that Tim Sheehan has plans in place, and we're going to continue to communicate with him about what those are. I just don't have anything specific for you right now.
Thank you. And I look eager to hear what Justin has to say. Councilor Hurst.
Councilor Hurst.
No, that actually was a great question, Councilor Edwards. As I've been reading a lot of data that says that this ought to be an opportunity, not only for new businesses, but for some of those businesses that had to close down to try to start back up again. I guess my question to you, Lindsay, or probably to Tim, if we could just keep in mind, I don't know if we have sort of a database on file as to the businesses in the city of Springfield. But it would be nice if we had that and then found and then at least give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, Jack. Give me 1 second. Let me finish this. Definitely gonna lose my train of thought.
That's why I'm in my office.
Database of businesses, Councilor.
Yes. If we have a database of businesses and can kind of identify what are those businesses that were left out, and maybe have a way in which we could track, or reach out to those individual businesses to see if they are in need. And then on the flip side, what I'd hate to see is businesses who don't necessarily need it getting it over and over and over again.
Right.
To me, that there's something not fair about that, especially if they don't need it. I mean, I understand folks are in need, but we got to find that. We got to have some way to sort of assess where these businesses are at. So I hope we're thinking about that.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair question to see who applied maybe and who didn't get funding and why. I think that could be an important question to ask too. But you're right, that's more of a Tim Sheehan question, but we can certainly bring that back to him because we've been in contact with him about this from the get-go. So
Thank you. And on that same point, and probably for Tim as well, we can have Tim on the next meeting as well. But I think to that same point as well, there was, we had talked about looking at businesses that had specifically closed. And I think the challenge was there was not really a consistent way to figure that out. But we talked maybe about doing some neighborhood surveying, to be like, hey, what are you not seeing that used to be there? And maybe we can reach out and say, hey, can we help you get back up and running?
That would be great. We have been trying internally to kind of like crowdsource within ourselves and for that information, trying to find out based off of the ones that we know. But if we know like citywide from other businesses, if we can get a comprehensive list, we're already working on ones. And if we can add on it, that would be amazing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. That's all that I have for today. I appreciate it. I think what might make sense, Melanie and Lindsay, and you guys have been fantastic about coming on, whenever asked, as well as just sometimes popping on these committee meetings. We are meeting bi-weekly now. And I think it might be good with everything that's going on that maybe we plan for finance to be present going forward, as well as the commissioner, so that we can continue to have these conversations. And I think it just provides a good and consistent time for counselors to pop on when they do have these things come up, especially with how uncharted it all is. So if that's all right with you, and
we're happy to. Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll just keep this going, and then we will continue to work together.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will adjourn the meeting, and please have a safe rest of your evening.